Nigerians are still reacting to the inaugural speech by President Bola Tinubu. President Tinubu, who succeeded former President Buhari, has highlighted many areas his administration would work on to develop the country. One key area is agriculture. According to the president, agricultural hubs will be created throughout the nation to increase production and engage in value-added processing. He also noted that the livestock sector will be introduced to best modern practices and steps taken to minimize the perennial conflict over land and water resources in this sector. Through these actions, he says, food will be made more abundant, yet less costly, while farmers would earn more and the average Nigerian would pay less for food. But joining us in the studio is the founder of Agric Business Nigeria, Africanfarmer Mogaji. Good morning, Africanfarmer. It's good to have you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Right. I wonder what you made of this statement, talking about he creating food hubs or agricultural hubs across the country. And he says that he would ensure that he prioritizes agriculture to end hunger as much as possible. But from your point of view, is this the direction to go?
Actually, that is the direction to go. For the first time, we're seeing a presidential speech more explicit and more elaborate about the value chains in the agricultural sector. You'll find other presidents in time past just talk about agriculture. And for the first time, we're finding livestock featuring at the forefront. It's mostly crops, fertilizers.
Yes.
But the value chain requires that livestock also be given the same priority as crops because livestock depends on crops. So the value chain of food security demands that we marry all and we integrate all. So for the first time, we're seeing a document that is holistic, taking care of almost all the value chains. And if we implement that document appropriately, we would have food security.
All right. Let me take you back a bit. Of course, you've spoken about past presidents. And if you look at the Buhari administration, a substantial chunk of his policies were on the agricultural industry. But when you weigh his strides in, to revamp agric, make it more viable, what lapses do you think, perhaps the Tinubu administration is trying to correct?
Well, basically, there was mostly no value chain approach. From day one, everything starts from day one, the message you pass across. From day one, you didn't have a very robust detail in the presidential speech. Yes, there's a conversation around it must not be very detailed, but it must give direction. What it has told us that other documents and implementation has not said is I will be making sure we touch all the sectors such that everybody, it's interrelated. What we've seen in the last administration is a lot of, can I use the word fire brigade approach came in, which is along the line, they began to think, okay, let's do this, let's do that. There was no holistic plan. This document presented by this new administration shows that technocrats, farmers, people have been consulted before producing this document. It spoke about credit. You've not found any president that just took office talk about credit. And he said promoting credit, not just having credit, promoting credit. He is not, and that tells you as an accountant and as a turnaround manager, is focusing on credit as against interventions, as against subsidies. Other administrations have always come with interventions, handouts, empowerment. He's saying, no, nothing of such. The empowerment will come with you taking your risk. We will just make these funds available across the value chain. You take your risk. That is what government should do. So This document is actually a very pregnant document, but bottom line is it's a document in the right direction. And so what that means also is that as an accountant also, and I would say as not me, as in the president being an accountant and haven't turned around economies like Lagos, and having leadership, there's more belief and trust. He spoke about policies. In the last administration, almost every policy in agriculture changed, which affected both practitioners and investors. But he made a statement that we would ensure that policies are revamped. So what that means is that if policies don't change, then practitioners can plan, investors can bring in money. So beyond the agricultural policy that I spoke about, that factor around giving us that confidence that policies will not change helps us to be able to plan and rejig, or let's use the word, start with what we have.
Now, when you're talking about revamping, the anchor borrower scheme, what would you like to see changed? Would you want that to remain, or what improvement would you want to see with regards to that, if it should remain?
Actually, anchor borrower should remain. It should remain, while we've invested 8 years into it. So we know what works, we know what will not work. One of the things that should change is that we should not be having an anchor, which is the person that brings 10,000, 100,000 farmers. That model is not sustainable in the country. We should have 50, 100. Microfinance should come in because they are more in the rural communities. Disbursement of inputs, because they don't actually get the cash. Disbursement of input would be more efficient there. So bottom line is that we need them to break it down. We need them to involve the middlemen. I've always clamored that come rain, come shine, the farmers and the middlemen, they are like husbands and wife. With the boards that they are saying they are bringing on board, which is also, the board is also a middleman. It's just that it's government legislated or government, government induced. But the middleman stays with the farmers. The middleman understands the terrain of the farmers. The middlemen are the ones that fund farmers. So bottom line, when farmers are in crisis, it's the middleman that takes care of it. So we need to pay attention to the middleman, bring them, fund them as a structure such that they are the anchors. When I was planting wheat in 2001 in Jigawa, and I could not afford the input, the fertilizer then, it was the middleman that I went to that gave me credit. 2001 in Jigawa. And that is still the norm today. So when you are harvesting, the middleman takes back part of your produce as their cost. So there is no new thing under the sun. We should empower the people who have been doing this business for years, put them in structure so that they don't take advantage of the farmers, and the government can bring in regulations once they are getting some form of assistance.
You spoke earlier about the Tinubu administration's plans for livestock, and of course Nigerians love their meat, very much. But what should they expect, under this government?
Well, if well implemented, we should have livestock of ours. I stand to be corrected, but over 70% of the beef we eat is not produced in Nigeria.
Really?
Yes. It's brought in from West African countries. A majority. Most of the livestock we rear in Nigeria are like the white Fulanis, the white ones. That's where you have the herders rare. They don't sell it except they need money. Just like when you buy shares and keep your shares, they keep the livestock, they don't sell. Most of the animals you will see that we slaughter for parties and engagements are like reddish, blackish, not white. So what will be happening now is we would have various breeds that will be rearing to be able to be beef secure. because at weddings, beef is the cheapest to use. So we would have our animals. These things were available during the Tafawa Balewa, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Awolowo Wars. These livestock from Argentina were all available, and India. So we will now be having livestock. We will now be having various parts of the country rearing their livestock. But most importantly, we would have various sectors or regions in the country take control of their beef security. What do I mean by that? Like the South, the East should actually be leading in cattle production, livestock. Why? We have the grass all year round. In the North, you don't have grass all year round. So bottom line is that what we need to feed the animals without them roaming about is available here. And that's what that will also do, is it will encourage people in the South to grow more grasses and herbs required for livestock development and sent to the North. So we would have more trading happening. So the northern environment that already have the expertise can develop the livestock faster. So they will depend on South and will begin to trade together. And so all those policies that I see with President Tinubu, if well implemented, a lot of ethnic challenges will be resolved once and for all.
Right.
Because when we were trading together in the 60s, we were not fighting. So this, if livestock is well taken care of, the rabbits, the guinea pigs, it's a whole lot value chain that we're excited we're likely to have some increase.
So we're talking about President Tinubu's policy direction for the agricultural sector. And one thing he said was that he was going to ensure that there is a nationwide program for storage and other facilities to reduce spoilage and waste. That kind of interests me because the matter of storage has been on the front burner for a long time now. But I'm wondering what you see or how you would want the president to undertake this such that it would be effective.
Yes, so storage should be on a local government basis, not regional, not federal. Because each local government has, and he used, when he was talking about the boards, he said certain crops. So each local government that is agrarian in nature should have silos. And, you know, with this nationwide, it puts a pressure on the local government chairman and the state governors to deliver. It decentralizes that energy will focus on the federal. And so the state government and the local government that have been running away from their responsibilities now will have, the people will now have to, you know, hold them to account. So you have, mostly in the north, almost every northern state produces almost all the grains we consume. So if we store in the local government, it would bring cooperatives. Cooperatives will come back to life. And not just cooperative of farmers, cooperatives of marketers, cooperatives of distributors. That decision to have storage across the country will help people move into various value chains of marketing. Some will provide silos where at the season, like we're going November, December, is the major season for most of the grains. So you can decide to go and set up silos in those local governments such that you have what they call a social enterprise. A social enterprise is a business that makes both profit and impact. As against the for-profit, the limited liability and code, that is strictly profit, and they do corporate social responsibility if they want to. So they would store these grains with consent of farmers. So they give farmers some loans and the farmers store. And when the prices go up, they both share margins. Or it can be strictly for business. You ensure that the farmers get better pricing during the peak season, and off-season, they can sell off. So the multinationals that we need them to stay in production also would have consistency of supply. As we speak, some of the multinationals buy their grains outside of Nigeria. Unfortunately so. They want to, but consistency in supply is not available. So you will find a lot of value chain happen, but it must be a local government conversation. It must be the appropriate technology. Because if care is not taken, we will want to bring Europe and the developed world storage into Nigeria now. And power is still a major challenge. So we need to have intermediate technology. And what that also does, if we bring in intermediate technology, is that it helps the middle and small, the artisans, to be able to work on these equipments. The more we bring very large European standard equipments, the more challenges we would have in terms of forex and co. So this will actually trickle to the bottom of the pyramid. And don't forget, there's a conversation he made mention of. He said he wanted the economy of the rural dwellers to improve. Focusing, yes, I've said it a couple of times on this platform, that then he was president-elect, that, he's always a rural-focused person. And so that was very clear in his conversation during the speech also, that income for the rural people would increase, economic development, and the farmers can earn more. Once we focus there, this storage will also help what I call urban-rural migration. What we normally have is rural-urban migration. But when there are more jobs in the rural community, people will have to leave the urban centers.
That would be an interesting move.
Yeah, and these policies, if well implemented, would cascade that. People will migrate out of Lagos, Port Harcourt, and co. and go there, and they can come for weekends to spend money. But bottom line is, this was what was making the economies thrive in the 60s. Money was made in the rural community, and they come for vacations in the urban centers. So this, again, is a pointer in the right direction, again, if well implemented.
Right, and perhaps we can build on the point of the need to implement more, to tighten implementation mechanisms, especially since Bola Tinubu has said that he desires to make food more abundant across the country, yet cheaper. And people have also, like if you look at the rice and maize, programs of the former administration, yet here we are still not dependent on, we're not rice sustainable, so to speak. So what more do we need to look out for in this administration? Okay,
so let me back up a bit. So some time ago, I did say when a former president was challenging another former president, asking where's the light? I did say that if he's not careful, they will ask him where's the rice? So President Tinubu also needs to pay attention so they don't ask where's the food. And it is a fundamental conversation around implementation. One, the Minister of Agriculture is very crucial. Two is the special advisors. Very, very crucial. They need a lot of local hands. If the minister, and they need to be fairly, they don't have to be, anything above 60 is a challenge.
Why?
Because the minister, because of the challenges we have, the minister has to be in the field a lot. For things to work in Nigeria, the minister needs to pay unannounced visitations to many projects. So, that agility to move is crucial. If we don't have that, the Minister for State is crucial to be younger. And if we don't have that, we need special advisors to the ministers, to the presidency, who understands boots on the ground. Because there's likely to be a challenge of bringing a lot of technocrats into the agri sector. And if you check, agri sector is a sector that has a lot of moving parts. Most of the time, if you find most of the big billionaires in Nigeria, industrialists, many of them face challenges, have abandoned projects in the agri sector. And so if you look at that critically, bank MDs, bank owners have abandoned projects. Industrialists have abandoned projects, and I've dealt with many of them. So if care is not taken, there will be a lot of theories, what has worked in other countries, but Nigeria is peculiar. So people with boots on the ground need to be the ones heading the implementation. Implementation now, the river basins are very crucial. Very crucial. It belongs to federal government. It's a federal asset. And no state has those assets. So when you talk about the boards that the president did talk about, because I'm interested in the board, there are like 6 different types of boards. But the board that I would like to see, the marketing boards, are the marketing boards who are also involved in economic activities, such that they create a balance between the commercial. So what the river basins used to do, they used to produce commercially through the farmers. So the pricing, they set a benchmark for the price. So as a private sector, if you want to produce and you want to take advantage of the market, because this is coming at a certain price, it regulates it naturally. So the river basins are very crucial platforms that the federal government needs to take advantage of. Now, the river basins are not in very good shape when it comes to irrigation. So you need people with hands-on experience who can help the president in a short time say, okay, so you find some river basins to say, oh, this one is 10,000 acres, 25,000 acres, but those places you cannot irrigate more than 5,000. But they will tell the president, oh, 9,000 is available. So when they disburse the funding, they will not get the result. So you need people who can say, this is 10,000, but actually it's 5,000 working. So it's 5,000 we have to, implement production. So bottom line is, I'm really excited, and I won't hide that. I'm excited with the conversation. I only want action to be matched with implementation. Every president, let me say this, every president has always had a beautiful document. And at the end of the day, since 1999, we've always had challenges of implementation. And the fundamental challenge is they don't use people with local knowledge. Experience. It's always foreign.
Now, one aspect that concerns me is the matter of climate change in the mix of all of this, because many have said that that wasn't reflected in his 80-page renewed hope document, and he didn't make mention of this matter of climate change and how we will mitigate that in the course of trying to ensure food security and all of it, because recall 2021, 2022, we saw how the rains were in the country and how we lost a lot with regards to food. How should he address that?
So let me say this. Climate change is a major challenge, but there are things that we do to manage climate change. Except for the excessive rains, that period, droughts can be easily managed now. There are agric inputs, organic and inorganic, that if it does not rain for 4 to 6 weeks, you will still harvest your crops. Most of the crops you get, most of the staple crops that we use for our food is harvested in 3-4 months. We've done it many times. So climate change is something we should pay attention to, but there are so many solutions around, except for that excessive rain. Even for the excessive rains, we can trap those waters. And immediately as the rain is receding, the floods are receding, we leverage it in the north, in Gombe. At around October, November, when the rains, when the floods are receding, they plant tomatoes, and they don't irrigate tomatoes until they harvest, which is like 4 months. So bottom line is that yes, climate change is real, it's challenging, but I think we've overblown the effect when it comes to Nigeria.
Really?
Yes, I've been tracking climate change. There are dams that recede up to 20 meters, but it is something we should pay attention to, but not as alarming now. So we can leverage these grains to store. That's why storage is crucial. If we have enough in storage, we can take care of this. Most of the tomatoes now will mature in 60 days, and they are not genetically modified. And so as long as they have 1 month of rain with the organic inputs that helps the crop to have good yields, we'll do better. Cassava now, in Thailand, you will have 40 tons to 70 tons. In Nigeria, you will have 10 to 15 tons. They are just some basic inputs that we need and is available now. So if we leverage this knowledge and this information through a private sector-driven conversation as it's presented, I'm sure that we will be food secure, and it's not going to be this alarming.
All right. We'll have to leave the conversation here now. Africanfarmer Mogaji, founder of Agric Business Nigeria. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Right.